Victoria Sterling stood before the board of directors, her eyes red-rimmed, her perfectly manicured hands trembling at her sides. 12 faces stared back at her, 12 judges waiting to deliver their verdict. Marcus Webb leaned back in his leather chair, a satisfied smile playing on his thin lips. "Let's vote, shall we? She's proven herself unfit to lead." The room fell silent. Victoria felt the walls closing in. Everything she had built, everything her father had sacrificed, it was all slipping through her fingers like sand. Then the door swung open. Wait. Every head turned. Daniel Hayes stood in the doorway, his chest heaving as if he had run up 20 flights of stairs. In his hand, he clutched a worn envelope, its edges softened by time, and a folder thick with documents. "Before you vote, you need to know the truth about Marcus Webb." Marcus's smile faltered. "Just for a second." But Victoria caught it. "What is this?" Marcus demanded. "Security? Remove this man immediately." Daniel didn't move. His eyes locked with Victoria's across the room. In that moment, she saw something she hadn't seen in years. Hope. 3 weeks earlier, the marble lobby of Sterling Enterprises gleamed under crystal chandeliers. 7:45 in the morning. Victoria watched from her position near the executive elevator as employees streamed through the glass doors. She stood perfectly still, her charcoal Armani suit impeccable, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. A statue carved from ice. She noticed him immediately. Daniel Hayes walked through the entrance, holding a small hand in his daughter. The child wore a butterfly backpack nearly as big as her torso, her blonde hair pulled into 2 lopsided pigtails. She was chattering about something, her free hand gesturing wildly, and Daniel was laughing. In her lobby. At 7:45 in the morning, Victoria's jaw tightened. "This is an office," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. "Not a playground." Daniel stopped. The laughter died in his throat. He squeezed his daughter's hand and began walking toward the elevator without responding. But the little girl looked up at Victoria with eyes the color of a summer sky. She tilted her head, studying the CEO with the unfiltered curiosity that only children possess. "Are you sad?" the child asked. Victoria blinked. "Excuse me? My mommy said people who are grumpy are usually the saddest ones. Are you sad?" Something cracked inside Victoria's chest. A hairline fracture in walls she had spent a decade reinforcing. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Daniel gently tugged his daughter toward the elevator. "Come on, Emma, let's go." Victoria watched them disappear behind the silver doors. Her heart was pounding. Why was her heart pounding? She turned and walked to her private elevator, her heels echoing against the marble. Daniel Hayes had learned to carry grief like a second skin. 2 years ago, he had sat beside a hospital bed, holding Sarah's hand as the monitors beeped their steady rhythm. Her fingers had been so thin, so fragile. The cancer had taken everything from her except her smile. "Promise me something," she had whispered. "Anything. Don't close your heart because of me. Emma needs a complete family, and you deserve to be happy." He had promised. But promises made in hospital rooms at 3 in the morning were easier to speak than to keep. Now, at his desk on the 3rd floor, Daniel glanced at the photograph beside his monitor. Sarah smiled back at him, her blonde hair catching sunlight, Emma just a toddler in her arms. He still wore his wedding ring. Some mornings, he forgot why. Other mornings, he remembered too well. 2 years, Daniel. Rachel Kim appeared beside his desk, coffee in hand. She was his closest friend at the company, the head of IT security, and the only person who knew how much he still struggled. "Have you thought about maybe meeting someone? Emma needs stability. Emma needs a father who isn't drowning in his own loneliness." Daniel didn't answer. He turned back to his screen, to the code that made sense, to the problems he could actually solve. In his desk drawer, beneath the paper clips and sticky notes, lay an envelope he had never opened. Sarah's final letter. She had told him to read it only when he was ready to love again. He wasn't sure that day would ever come. Eleanor Mitchell didn't knock before entering Victoria's office. At 68 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen 3 generations of sterling leadership, she had earned that privilege. She had been Victoria's mother's best friend. had held Catherine Sterling's hand when she died, and had promised to watch over her daughter. "You're becoming your father," Eleanor said. Victoria looked up from her laptop. "Good morning to you too, Aunt Eleanor. I saw you with that single father in the lobby, the cruelty in your voice." Eleanor settled into the chair across from Victoria's desk. "Your mother would weep. Don't bring my mother into this." "Someone has to. Because the girl I watched grow up, the girl who used to feed stray cats and cry during sad movies, that girl is disappearing. And I'm watching a monster take her place." Victoria's fingers froze over her keyboard. That girl was weak. That girl was human. Silence stretched between them. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Boston's skyline glittered in the morning sun. "The shareholder meeting is in 3 weeks, Victoria finally said. "Marcus Webb is circling. He wants to tear apart everything my family built. I don't have time for humanity." Eleanor leaned forward. "Your father built this company so you could have a life worth living, not so you could become a prisoner of your own success." She stood, smoothing her silk blouse. At the door, she paused. "Your mother used to say that the strongest people are often the ones who need the most love. Remember that, Victoria, before it's too late." The door clicked shut. Victoria stared at the empty space where Eleanor had stood. She shook her head and returned to her spreadsheets. Numbers made sense. Numbers didn't betray you. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Daniel was rushing to a meeting when his wallet slipped from his pocket. The worn leather, held together more by habit than structural integrity, finally surrendered. It split apart on the marble floor, scattering bills and cards and photographs. He dropped to his knees, gathering the debris of his financial life. His fingers closed around a photograph that had landed face up. Sarah, Emma, himself. Taken 3 years ago, before the diagnosis, before the hospital rooms, before the grief that had become his constant companion. A shadow fell over him. Victoria Sterling stood there, her eyes fixed on the photograph. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted. Her hand reached toward the image, then stopped mid-air. "Who is that?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Daniel looked up, confused by the strange expression on her face. "My wife. She passed away 2 years ago." Victoria's hand trembled. "What was her name?" Sarah Hayes." Something shattered behind Victoria's eyes. Something she had been holding together through sheer force of will. She thrust the photograph back at Daniel and walked away so quickly her heels sparked against the marble. Daniel stared after her, the photograph clutched in his hand. What had just happened? Why did the Ice Queen of Sterling Enterprises look like she had seen a ghost? Eleanor found Victoria in the small rooftop garden, staring at the Boston skyline as the sun began its descent. "You saw the photograph," Eleanor said. It wasn't a question. "She looks exactly like her." Victoria's voice cracked. "Sarah Hayes looks exactly like Tyler's cousin." "Yes. They shared the same grandmother. I confirmed it when I ran a background check on Daniel Hayes 6 months ago." Victoria spun around. "You knew? You knew that man's wife was related to the person who destroyed me, and you said nothing?" "I knew because I needed to understand why fate kept putting him in your path. And what I discovered, Victoria, is that Sarah Hayes was nothing like Tyler. She cut ties with him years ago after she learned what he did to you. That doesn't change anything. It changes everything." Eleanor stepped closer. "Sarah knew your story. She felt responsible, even though she had no part in Tyler's betrayal. She wanted to apologize to you. She wrote letters she never sent. And before she died, she wrote one final letter to her husband." Victoria sank onto a stone bench. "What kind of letter?" "I don't know. Daniel has never opened it. Sarah told him to read it only when he was ready to love again." Eleanor sat beside her. "But I believe that letter contains answers. Answers about Tyler. About what really happened 10 years ago." Victoria stared at her hands. 10 years ago, she had fallen in love with Tyler Morrison. A carpenter, no degree, no money. Just calloused hands and a smile that made her believe in fairy tales. Her father had warned her. She hadn't listened. 2 years into their relationship, she discovered Tyler had been selling company secrets to rivals. And then came the twist that broke her completely. Her father had claimed responsibility. said he paid Tyler to test her loyalty, to teach her that love was weakness. Victoria had believed him. She had screamed at her father, called him a monster, refused to speak to him ever again. He died of a heart attack 6 months later. She didn't attend the funeral. 10 years. Victoria whispered. I've hated my father for 10 years. I know, child. I know. The next morning, Emma arrived at work with her father carrying a small paper bag. Wait here, she told Daniel, marching toward Victoria's office with determination that would have impressed a 4-star general. Victoria looked up to find the 7-year-old standing in her doorway. I brought you something. Emma held out the bag. Inside was a cupcake with blue frosting, slightly lopsided from the journey. Daddy said you don't like sweet things. But I think everyone needs sweet things when they're sad. Victoria stared at the offering. Blue frosting. Her favorite color. How did you know I like blue? I asked you yesterday. When you were looking at the sky. Emma smiled. Gap-toothed and genuine. You said blue. Like my mommy's eyes. Victoria's throat tightened. Your mother had blue eyes? The bluest. Daddy said they were like the ocean on a sunny day. Emma climbed into the chair across from Victoria's desk, making herself comfortable. Mommy told me something before she went to heaven. She said the strongest people are the ones who need the most hugs. Do you need a hug? Victoria's vision blurred. The same words. The same words her own mother had spoken. The same words Eleanor had repeated just yesterday. Yes, she whispered. I think I do. Emma slid off the chair and wrapped her small arms around Victoria's neck. And Victoria Sterling, CEO of a Fortune 500 company, the ice queen of Boston's corporate world, began to cry. From the doorway, Daniel watched. His heart was doing something it hadn't done in 2 years. It was beating for someone other than Emma. The server crash happened at 11:30 on a Thursday night. Daniel received the emergency call while reading Emma a bedtime story. Mrs. Henderson, their elderly neighbor and surrogate grandmother, arrived within minutes. Emma barely stirred as Daniel kissed her forehead and ran into the night. He expected to find the server room empty. He found Victoria instead. She stood amid the blinking equipment, her silk blouse untucked, her hair escaping its careful arrangement. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She looked human, vulnerable, real. The Tokyo investors have quarterly reports due in 6 hours, she said without preamble. If we lose this data, we lose the deal. Daniel nodded and got to work. They moved through the crisis like partners who had worked together for years. She understood the business implications. He understood the technical solutions. They communicated in half sentences and knowing glances. 3 in the morning. The crisis had passed. Daniel slumped against a server rack, exhaustion pulling at his bones. When did you last eat? Victoria asked. He couldn't remember. She disappeared, returning minutes later with sandwiches from the executive kitchen. Thank you, he said. She sat beside him on the cold floor, her designer skirt pooling around her. I was wrong about you, she said. About what I said that first day. You were wrong about a lot of things. I know. She pulled her knees to her chest. I've been wrong about most things for the past decade. Daniel studied her profile in the dim light. Can I tell you something about Sarah? Victoria tensed but nodded. She had a cousin named Tyler. They were close once, when they were young. But Sarah cut him off years before I met her. She never told me why exactly. Just said he had done something terrible to someone innocent. Daniel paused. She carried guilt about it. Said she wished she could have stopped him. Could have warned the woman he hurt. Victoria's breath caught. She knew about me? I think so. She talked about wanting to make things right somehow. About writing letters she never sent. Daniel turned to face her. She wrote me a letter before she died. Told me to open it when I was ready to love again. Have you opened it? Not yet. He met her eyes. But I'm starting to think I should. The silence between them was different now. Charged. Full of possibility. Tell me about Tyler, Daniel said softly. Tell me what he did to you. So she did. Everything. The love, the betrayal, her father's confession, the funeral she didn't attend. When she finished, Daniel was quiet for a long moment. What if your father didn't do it? Victoria frowned. What do you mean? What if someone else paid Tyler? Someone who wanted to destroy your family from the inside. That's impossible. My father confessed. Did he? Or did he take the blame for something he didn't do? Daniel's voice was gentle but insistent. Sarah cut ties with Tyler right around the time of your incident. She never explained why, but she was devastated. Kept saying she had discovered something horrible about her cousin, something that involved powerful people. Victoria's mind raced. You think Sarah knew the truth? I think the answer might be in that letter I've never opened. They stared at each other across the humming servers. Open it, Victoria whispered. Please. Daniel came home to a quiet apartment, but he didn't go to bed. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table, Sarah's letter in his hands. The envelope was worn from being carried in his wallet, transferred from drawer to drawer, always close but never opened. He looked at the photograph on the wall. Sarah, laughing at something he had said. Emma, covered in birthday cake. I think I'm ready, he whispered to her image. I think I found someone who needs me as much as I need her. He opened the envelope. My dearest Daniel, if you're reading this, it means you've found someone new. Someone worth loving. I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful. But I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago. My cousin Tyler did something unforgivable. He destroyed a woman named Victoria Sterling. He seduced her, stole from her company, and broke her heart. But Tyler didn't act alone. He was paid by a man named Marcus Webb. I discovered this 3 years ago when Tyler got drunk at a family gathering and bragged about the money he made. He said Marcus Webb paid him to infiltrate the Sterling family to turn Victoria against her father. Marcus wanted the company, and he was willing to destroy a family to get it. I have proof. Emails between Tyler and Marcus. Financial records showing the payments. I've kept copies in our safe deposit box. Key taped to the back of your childhood photograph. Richard Sterling was innocent. He took the blame to protect his daughter from the truth that the man she loved had been a hired weapon. He thought if Victoria believed he was the villain, at least she wouldn't feel like a fool for loving Tyler. He was wrong, but his intentions were pure. I wanted to tell Victoria myself. I wrote her letters I never sent. I was a coward. But you, my love, are brave. If you ever meet her, if life ever brings you together, please give her the truth. She deserves to know her father loved her until his last breath. Yours forever, Sarah. Daniel sat motionless, tears streaming down his face. The truth. After all these years, the truth. He reached for his phone and called Rachel Kim. I need your help, he said, and I need it now. Rachel met him at the office at 5 in the morning, coffee in hand and questions in her eyes. Sarah left evidence, Daniel explained, spreading the documents from the safe deposit box across her desk. Emails between Tyler and Marcus Webb. Financial records. Everything. Rachel's eyes widened as she scanned the papers. This is explosive. It gets better. Can you verify these emails? Cross-reference them with any company servers? Rachel's fingers flew across her keyboard. 20 minutes later, she looked up with an expression of grim satisfaction. I found them. Encrypted files on an old server that someone tried to delete 10 years ago. The deletion was incomplete. She turned her monitor toward him. These emails matched Sarah's copies exactly. Marcus Webb hired Tyler Morrison. Richard Sterling was framed. Daniel closed his eyes. Victoria's father was innocent. And Marcus Webb has been playing the long game. 10 years of positioning himself. 10 years of waiting for the right moment to strike. Rachel leaned back. The shareholder meeting is in 2 weeks. He's going to make his move. Then we make ours first. But first, Daniel had to tell Victoria. He found her in her office, staring at the sunrise through floor-to-ceiling windows. I opened the letter, he said. She turned slowly. Her face was pale. Her eyes red-rimmed. She hadn't slept either. Tell me. So he did. Everything. Sarah's discovery. Tyler's confession at the family gathering. Marcus Webb's decade-long scheme. Richard Sterling's sacrifice. Victoria listened without moving, without breathing. When Daniel finished, she walked to her desk and picked up a framed photograph. Her father, taken at her college graduation. He had been so proud. He died thinking I hated him, she whispered. He died protecting you. I didn't go to his funeral. Her voice broke. I didn't hold his hand. I didn't tell him I loved him. Daniel crossed the room and took her in his arms. She collapsed against his chest, sobbing the tears she had held back for 10 years. He knew. Daniel murmured into her hair. He always knew. The kiss happened 3 days later. Emma had woken with a fever. Daniel was rushing through the lobby, trying to reach the pediatrician before closing time. Derek Palmer from marketing blocked his path, a cruel smile on his face. Leaving early again, Hayes. Must be nice, using your kid as an excuse to slack off. Daniel kept walking. Hey, I'm talking to you. Derek stepped closer. Some of us actually work for a living. Maybe if you spent less time playing single dad. That's enough. Victoria's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. She strode toward them, her eyes blazing. Miss Sterling, we were just... I heard exactly what you were doing. She stopped inches from Derek. Daniel Hayes has logged more overtime hours this quarter than anyone in his department. He's resolved 3 critical system failures that saved this company millions. He's done all of this while raising a daughter alone, without complaint, without excuses. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to ice. What have you done, Derek? Besides make everyone around you miserable? Derek's face went white. He stammered something unintelligible and fled. Victoria turned to Daniel. Her chest was heaving. Her hands were shaking, and her eyes held something he had never seen before. I'm tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of pretending I don't care. She grabbed his jacket and pulled him toward her. The kiss was desperate and tender and inevitable. 2 lonely people finally admitting what they had been fighting for weeks. Healing and heartbreak and hope, all tangled together. When they separated, Daniel saw movement behind Victoria's shoulder. Emma stood near the entrance, Mrs. Henderson beside her, watching with wide eyes. Then Emma smiled, gap-toothed and knowing. I told you, she whispered to Mrs. Henderson. Everyone needs sweet things. But someone else had been watching too. From the mezzanine level, Marcus Webb lowered his phone, the photograph of the kiss saved to his camera roll. He smiled. Finally, the weapon he needed. The photograph landed on Victoria's desk at 9 the next morning. Her, Daniel, kissing in the lobby. Below the image, a typed note. Emergency board meeting. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The topic, your fitness to lead. Victoria spent the night in her office. Eleanor found her there at midnight. What are you going to do? I don't know. Victoria's voice was hollow. If I choose Daniel, I lose everything my father worked for. Your father worked for your happiness. My father is dead because I wouldn't listen to him. Victoria's voice cracked. I can't fail him again. Eleanor sat beside her. Do you remember what I told you about your mother's last words to me? Victoria nodded. She said, take care of my daughter. Don't let her become a prisoner of success. I've tried, Victoria, but you keep building walls. Eleanor took her hand. Your mother also said something else. She said, tell Victoria that love is never weakness. Tell her that the bravest thing she'll ever do is let someone in. Victoria stared at their joined hands. I don't know how to be brave. Yes, you do. Eleanor squeezed gently. You just have to trust that you're worth loving. Scars and all. Across town, Daniel sat beside Emma's bed, watching her sleep. Her fever had broken, but he had stayed anyway, needing to feel her presence. He looked at the bare space on his finger where his wedding ring had been for 4 years. Earlier that evening, he had taken it off, placed it in a small velvet box alongside Sarah's letter, held both to his heart. Thank you, he had whispered to Sarah's memory. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for Emma. And thank you for setting me free. Now Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Daddy, why aren't you wearing your ring? Daniel smiled softly. Because Mommy told me to move forward. And I'm finally ready. Does that mean Miss Victoria is going to be my new mommy? Would you be okay with that? Emma considered this with 7-year-old solemnity. Mommy came to me in my dream last night. She said Miss Victoria needs us, and we need her. She snuggled deeper into her blankets. She said it's okay to have 2 mommies. The one in heaven and the one who needs hugs. Daniel kissed her forehead, his heart full. I love you, Emma. Love you too, Daddy. Now go save Miss Victoria. I'll be fine. The boardroom was silent when Victoria entered. 12 faces. 12 judges. Marcus Webb sat at the far end, triumph written in every line of his body. Let's not waste time, Marcus said. We've all seen the photograph. Our CEO has been carrying on a relationship with a subordinate. This behavior is unacceptable for someone in her position. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table. Her hands were steady. Her spine was straight. She had made her decision. The motion is simple, Marcus continued. Remove Victoria Sterling from her position. Appoint interim leadership. Begin the process of finding. Before we vote, Eleanor interrupted. I believe we should hear all the evidence. What evidence? The photograph speaks for itself. Actually, there's quite a bit more to discuss. Eleanor nodded toward the door. You can come in now. Daniel walked in, clutching Sarah's letter and Rachel's folder. What is this? Marcus's face reddened. This is a closed session. Security. I'd wait before calling security, Marcus. Daniel approached the table. You might want to hear what I have to say first. He spread the documents across the polished wood. Emails. Financial records. A paper trail spanning 10 years. 10 years ago, Marcus Webb hired a man named Tyler Morrison to infiltrate the Sterling family. Tyler seduced Victoria. He fed company secrets to Marcus's associates. And when Richard Sterling discovered the truth, Marcus framed him for the whole thing. Gasps rippled through the room. That's absurd, Marcus sputtered. Here are the emails. Daniel pointed to the first stack. Encrypted communications between you and Tyler, recovered from company servers by our IT security team. Here are the financial records showing payments from your personal accounts to Tyler's offshore holdings. He held up Sarah's letter. And here is testimony from my late wife, Sarah Hayes, Tyler's cousin. She discovered the truth before she died and documented everything. Eleanor stood. I verified these documents independently with 3 separate forensic accountants. They're authentic. The board members turned to face Marcus. His triumph had transformed into terror. Victoria rose from her seat. For 10 years, she said, her voice carrying across the room, I believe my father betrayed me. For 10 years, I carried that wound. It made me cold, cruel. It made me push away everyone who tried to love me. She walked toward Marcus, each step deliberate. You took my father from me. You poisoned my memories of him. You made me abandon him in his final months. Made me skip his funeral. Made me believe he was a monster. She stopped inches from him. But you didn't break me. And you won't break this company. She turned to face the board. I fell in love with Daniel Hayes. That's true. But love isn't weakness. It's strength. The strength to trust again. The strength to let someone see your scars. The strength to build something new from the wreckage of something broken. Her voice steadied. My father built this company for one reason, so his family could be happy. For 10 years, I forgot that. I turned his legacy into a prison. But I remember now. She looked at Daniel, at Eleanor, at the empty chair where her father should have been sitting. If caring for another person makes me unfit to lead, then maybe you need a different CEO. But I won't apologize for choosing to be human. The vote wasn't close. Marcus Webb was escorted from the building by security, and Victoria Sterling remained exactly where she belonged. 3 months later, spring arrived in Boston. Cherry blossoms lined the paths of the public garden as Victoria walked hand in hand with Emma. Daniel followed behind, carrying a picnic basket and wearing a smile that hadn't left his face in weeks. This spot, Emma declared, pointing to a patch of grass beneath a blooming tree. Mommy would like this spot. They spread the blanket and unpacked the food. Victoria had traded her Armani suits for a soft cashmere sweater. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, softer, alive. Emma climbed into her lap. I made you something. From her backpack, she produced a small box. Inside was a bracelet with 3 stones, blue, green, and pink. Victoria's breath caught. Emma, the blue is for Mommy in heaven. The green is for Daddy. And the pink is for you. Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, the way only children can be when stating profound truths. 3 people who love me. That's what family means. Victoria pulled the little girl close, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. she whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. Daniel sat beside them, his arm wrapping around Victoria's shoulders. On his left hand, a new ring glinted in the spring sunlight. On Victoria's hand, its match sparkled beside her grandmother's diamond. Sarah would have liked you, he said quietly. You think so? I know so. He kissed her temple. She always believed people came into our lives for reasons we don't understand. Maybe this was the reason all along. 1 week later, Victoria stood before 2 graves in Mount Auburn Cemetery. The first belonged to her father. She placed flowers on the fresh grass and knelt beside the headstone. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry I didn't listen. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I let a decade pass believing lies. She traced the carved letters of his name. But I understand now. I understand what you sacrificed to protect me. And I promise, I will spend the rest of my life making you proud. The second grave was Sarah's. Victoria placed a white rose on the stone. I never got to meet you, she said. But your daughter saved me. Your husband gave me hope. And your letter, the truth you protected it, set me free. Emma appeared beside her, slipping her small hand into Victoria's. Mommy can hear you, Emma said with certainty. She told me in my dream. What did she say? Emma smiled. She said, thank you for taking care of us. And she said, you have really pretty eyes when you cry. Victoria laughed through her tears and pulled Emma close. Behind them, Daniel stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the 2 people who had become his whole world. Some wounds never fully heal. But standing in that cemetery, surrounded by spring flowers and the promise of new beginnings, Victoria understood something she had forgotten long ago. Healing doesn't mean the scars disappear. It means finding people who love you exactly as you are. 6 months later, Victoria's office had transformed. Emma's drawings covered one wall. Family photographs lined the bookshelf. A framed cupcake wrapper, blue frosting, slightly crushed, sat on her desk beside a new photo. Victoria, Daniel, and Emma at their wedding, all 3 laughing at something the photographer had said. Eleanor appeared in the doorway. Your mother would be so proud. Victoria looked up, smiling. I know. I can feel her sometimes. When Emma laughs, when Daniel holds my hand, she's there. The door burst open. Emma ran in, her butterfly backpack bouncing, her gap-toothed grin lighting up the room. Mommy Victoria, Daddy says we're getting ice cream after school. Victoria stood, catching the little girl in her arms. The word still made her heart flutter. Mommy. She had never expected to hear it. Is that so? Uh-huh. And he said, you have to come. Family rule. Daniel appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand, wedding ring catching the light. You heard the boss, he said. Victoria kissed Emma's forehead and set her down. Let me finish one more email. Then ice cream. Promise? Promise. Emma ran to show Eleanor her latest drawing, leaving Victoria and Daniel alone for a moment. He crossed to her desk, cupping her face in his hands. I love you, he said simply. I love you too. He kissed her softly. When they parted, she noticed him looking at the framed letter on her wall, Sarah's final words, preserved behind glass. Do you ever think about her? Victoria asked. About whether she would approve? Every day. And every day, I know the answer is yes. He smiled. She sent me to you, Victoria. Across time and tragedy and impossible coincidence. She sent me to you so we could heal together. Victoria rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Then let's not waste the gift she gave us. They walked out together, Emma's hand in Victoria's, Daniel's arm around her waist. A family built from broken pieces. A love story written in second chances. Behind them, on Victoria's wall, Sarah's letter hung in its frame. The deepest wounds need the greatest love to heal. And sometimes the people who seem coldest are the ones who need warmth the most. Be brave. Be kind. And never stop believing that broken things can become beautiful again. Through the window, cherry blossoms drifted on the spring breeze, carrying whispers of gratitude from everyone who had loved them into being.